The payphone sits outside Baxter's grocery like a tombstone. Nobody bothers to read anymore. That's not me being poetic. Baxter's has been closed since I was in middle school. The building's still there, though brick front, faded green awning, the windows papered from the inside. Like somebody's trying to keep the sun from seeing what happened. The payphone is bolted to the wall under the awning, half sheltered from the rain. Its plastic housing has gone the color of old teeth. The coin slot is jammed with something dark. The cord is wrapped in duct tape like a tourniquet. It hasn't taken calls in years. We don't have payphones in my town. Not really, not like that. But every night, at exactly 2:47 a.m., it rings. Not around 2:47. Not usually exactly. It rings the same way every time too. 2 short bursts, a pause. Then one long ring that seems to hang in the air like it's waiting for someone to react. If you're close enough, you can feel it in your teeth. Most people in town will tell you they've never heard it. They'll say it like they're insulted, you asked. Like you're accusing them of believing in something stupid. But the same people won't park near Baxter's after dark. They won't walk their dogs past that side of Main Street. And if they have to drive by at night, they don't look at the awning. I know because I work nights. Not a glamorous night job. I'm the guy who starts the ovens at Marino's bakery. So the morning crowd can pretend their croissants weren't frozen yesterday. I clock in at midnight, tie on an apron, and spend the next few hours in a warm room that smells like yeast and sugar while the rest of town sleeps. If you ever want to see what a place really is, work while everyone else is dreaming. Daylight makes even rotten things look polite. My shift ends at 3. That means at 2:47, I'm usually in the back, loading trays, half listening to the radio, thinking about whether I can afford new tires before winter. The first time I heard the payphone ring, I didn't know what it was. I thought it was an alarm or a car horn or someone's phone stuck under a seat. Then it happened again the next night at the same minute, and the next. After a week of that, the coincidence stopped being a coincidence. I mentioned it to my coworker Lena when she came in early to make the breakfast sandwiches. Lena's been at Marino's longer than anyone. She's the type of person who can tell when a storm's coming by how the flour settles. And she has that tight-lipped, practical way of talking that makes you feel dumb for having imagination. I said, "You ever hear that ringing outside Baxter's at night?" Her knife froze halfway through slicing a bagel. For a second. She didn't even look at me. She just stared down at the cutting board like she was trying to decide if she'd misheard me. Then she set the knife down carefully. "No," she said, one word too quick. I waited for her to add something, anything like "why?" or "what ringing?" But she just picked up the knife again and started slicing with more force than she needed. So I pushed. I shouldn't have, but curiosity is like hunger. You tell yourself you're fine until you smell food. "It rings at 2:47, I said, "every night." Lena's jaw tightened. "Don't talk about it in here," she said without looking up. "In here," I repeated. "What? The flower's listening." That got her attention. She looked at me, then really looked. And her eyes had that wary shine you see in deer on the shoulder of the highway. "Just don't," she said. "If you keep saying it, you'll end up answering it." I laughed, because it was easier than admitting a cold little needle of fear had slid under my ribs. "Who's answering a payphone in 2025? She leaned toward me, lowered her voice. "The people who don't want it ringing anymore," she said. "The people who think they can bargain." Before I could ask what she meant, the front door of the bakery chimed, and the owner's teenage son wandered in, rubbing sleep out of his eyes. Lena straightened like she'd never said anything strange in her life. That was how it went with everyone in town. You could feel there was a shape to the secret, like a bruise you keep bumping, but nobody would describe it. They'd just flinch and change the subject. So I started paying attention. At 2:45 each night, I'd find an excuse to step out the back door for fresh air, even though the alley behind Marino's smells like yeast trash and old cardboard. From there I could see the corner of Baxter's awning 2 buildings down. The first time I deliberately watched the payphone, I brought my phone with me. I wanted proof, a video, something to show I wasn't losing my mind. At 2:46, my phone showed full service. At 2:47, the screen went black. Not like it died, like it had been switched off. I held the power button. Nothing. The payphone rang anyway. 2 short bursts. Pause. 1 long ring. When it rang, the sound wasn't coming from the speaker like normal. It came from the metal itself. The housing vibrated, and I saw the cord twitch slightly, like a muscle reacting. My mouth went dry. I realized I'd been holding my breath. I took 1 step toward it. The alley light above me flickered. Not off, just dimmer, like the bulb was getting tired. And then I heard something else layered under the ring, quiet, almost polite. A voice, not through the phone, not a shout from the street. A whisper tucked into the sound of the ringing itself. Like the ring was carrying words inside it. It said my name. Not the name people at work call me. Not the shortened version. The full one my mother only uses when she's serious. My stomach turned. I stepped back. The ringing stopped instantly, mid-note, as if whoever was on the other end had lifted their finger off the button the moment I moved away. The alley returned to normal brightness. My phone screen came back on by itself, showing the lock screen like nothing had happened. I stared at it, waiting for the timestamp. 2:47 a.m. I went back inside and didn't tell Lena what I'd heard. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't want to give the thing any more of my voice than it had already taken. But the next night, as 2:47 crept closer, I realized something that made my skin prickle. It hadn't said my name to lure me closer. It had said it like it was confirming something. Like it had checked a box. Like it had finally found the right person. And that's the part nobody tells you about the payphone. It doesn't just ring, it picks. I didn't sleep after that. I laid in bed with the curtains open, watching the streetlight outside smear pale yellow across my ceiling. Every little noise pipes ticking, a car passing on the highway. My refrigerator cycling made my heart jump, because my brain kept trying to overlay that pattern of rings onto everything. 2 short pause, 1 long. Sometime after noon, I gave up and drove into town. Daytime made Baxter's look less like a haunted landmark, and more like a sad leftover. The kind of building towns keep around. Because tearing it down would mean admitting they're not coming back. The awning was bleached almost white by sun. The payphone sat under it in shadow, dull and dead. No vibration, no whisper. Just a relic. If you walked by without knowing, you'd think it was broken scenery. I stood there pretending to check my notifications, watching the sidewalk reflections in the darkened windows. A couple people passed, and every single one of them avoided looking directly at it. Like the payphone was a stray dog that might bite if you met its eyes. I waited until there was no one close. Then I stepped under the awning. The first thing I noticed was the smell. Not mildew, not rust. Something faint and sharp, like overheated plastic, like the inside of an old television that's been running too long. The second thing I noticed was the receiver. It wasn't hanging straight. It sat slightly off-center, like someone had set it down gently, but missed the cradle by a fraction. My fingers hovered near it. I didn't touch. Lena's voice echoed in my head. If you keep saying it, you'll end up answering it. I leaned closer, and that's when I saw the paper. A sheet taped to the inside of the housing, tucked where you wouldn't notice it unless you were looking for something. It was old, yellowed at the edges. The tape browned and peeling. The handwriting wasn't one person's. It was layered different inks, different thicknesses. Some lines cramped like they were written in a hurry. Some words had been traced over so many times they looked carved. At the top in block letters, read before you touch the receiver. Under that, a line added later in darker ink. If you already heard it say your name, you're late. My throat tightened. I scanned the street again. Nobody was watching me. But the moment I started reading, I got that awful feeling you get when you're standing in a quiet room and you realize you've been talking to someone behind a door. I forced myself to keep going. Rule 1. Do not answer on Tuesday nights. That one was underlined 3 times. Rule 2. If the receiver is already off the hook when you arrive, leave immediately. Do not hang it up for them. Rule 3. Do not stand inside the shadow of the awning when it rings. The awning is part of it. Rule 4. Do not bring a phone, camera, or any device that records. It will use your speaker. I glanced down at my pocket. My phone was there. I hadn't thought about it. My skin went cold. Rule 5. If you hear breathing before you say hello, hang up. Do not apologize. Rule 6. Do not say your name first. If it asks who you are, say, not yours. I stared at that line for a long second. The phrase felt wrong in my mouth even without speaking it. Not yours. Rule 7. If the dial tone feels warm, do not touch the metal. Walk away. Wash your hands. Rule 8. If you hear your own voice on the line, hang up immediately. Do not listen for what it says next. Rule 9. If it offers you something you miss, it's already taken it from someone else. That one hit me hardest because it implied an economy, a trade system. The kind of logic that makes cruelty feel organized. Rule 10. Do not look behind you while the phone is ringing. If you already did, do not look behind you again that night. Rule 11. If the call drops at 2:48, you are safe until the next new moon. Below that, in smaller writing, if it doesn't drop, don't go home. My eyes flicked to the bottom of the page where the tape had started to curl. More writing was half hidden, like someone had tried to tuck it away. I leaned in and read. Rule 12. If it says, let me out, do not answer. Do not hang up. Put the receiver down gently and step away. Rule 13. If you ever hear a second ring after the long one, run. Do not drive. Then there was a final line, written in heavy ink so dark it looked bruised. Someone had tried to scratch it out, but they hadn't succeeded. The paper was torn where the pen dug in. Rule 14. You can trade the rest was gouged away. A car passed and the wind gusted. The paper fluttered, and for a split second, the torn fibers aligned just enough that I could make out the missing word underneath the scratches. Trade time, my stomach lurched. I stepped back from the payphone, heart hammering. The world felt too bright, too loud. A kid laughed across the street. A dog barked. A delivery truck hissed air brakes. Normal sounds stacked on top of something not normal at all. I pulled my phone out to check the date Tuesday. Of course it was. My thumb hovered over the calendar app like it could save me. Rule 1. Do not answer on Tuesday nights. I slid the phone back into my pocket and forced myself to walk away. I made it half a block before I realized the payphone smell was still in my nose. That sharp overheated plastic scent clung like smoke. At Marino's that night, Lena took one look at my face and didn't bother pretending anymore. You went over there, she said. I didn't answer, because answering felt like admitting it out loud. And the rules had already taught me that words mattered. Lena set a tray down harder than necessary, then wiped her hands on her apron like she was preparing for something unpleasant. Did you read the paper? She asked. I nodded once. She exhaled through her nose, almost a laugh. Everybody reads it, she said. Most people still answer. Why? My voice came out rough. Lena leaned closer, eyes darting toward the front windows, like she expected the awning shadow to stretch all the way here. Because it rings for a reason, she said. And because sometimes, it gives you back something you thought was gone. I felt my chest tighten. Like what? Lena's mouth pressed into a thin line. For a moment she looked older than she was. My sister had a baby, she said quietly. Stillborn, 10 years ago. We buried him on a rainy Thursday, she swallowed. One night the payphone rang and my sister answered. She came home shaking, wouldn't tell me what it said. But the next morning, the nursery monitor was on, plugged in, working. And you could hear breathing through it. My skin prickled. What happened to the baby? I whispered. Lena's eyes snapped to mine. That's the point, she said. Nothing happened. He was still dead. But for a week after that, she swore she could hear him at night. Little sounds. Little whimpers, like he was close. Her jaw tightened. And then on the 7th night, she answered again. Because she thought if she just followed the rules perfectly, it would give him back all the way. I waited. Lena's voice dropped even lower. My sister moved away the next morning, she said. Left everything. Left her husband. Left the nursery. Wouldn't even take her clothes. What did the phone say? I asked. Lena looked at me like she wanted to slap me and hug me at the same time. She said it asked her a question, Lena replied. A simple one. Her eyes glassed slightly, like the memory still burned. Which door do you want open? A timer beeped behind us. The oven's ready. The bakery smell rising. Lena straightened. but her voice stayed tight. "It doesn't just ring," she said. "It makes you choose." I thought about the missing rule. Trade time. I thought about my phone blacking out exactly at 2:47, like the payphone didn't want witnesses. And I thought about the whisper in the ring saying my name like it had finally found the right person. Lena grabbed my wrist hard enough to hurt. "If it rings for you tonight," she said, "don't be brave. Don't be curious. And whatever you do," she hesitated, eyes flicking toward the back door, "don't go near Baxter's awning at 2:47 with your phone on you." I stared at her. I already did, I admitted. The color drained from her face. For the first time since ID met her, Lena looked afraid of me. Not for what ID done. For what ID invited. And right then, as if the town itself wanted to underline her point, the bakery's wall clock ticked over. 2:46 a.m., 1 minute left. At 2:46, every sound in Marino seemed too loud. The mixers hummed. The ovens hissed. The fluorescent lights buzzed like insects trapped in glass. I could hear the tiny crackle of crust forming on loaves through the oven door. And it made my skin crawl, because my brain kept insisting it was another kind of sound, something trying to speak through heat. Lena didn't look at me again. She just worked faster, slamming trays, wiping counters. Keeping her hands busy like motion could keep a boundary intact. I tried to do the same. I checked the proofing racks. I rotated a tray of rolls. I pretended my heart wasn't beating like it wanted out of my chest. The clock over the prep sink clicked to 2:47. Nothing happened inside the bakery. No ring, no voice, no power flicker. For half a second, relief hit me so hard I almost laughed. Then the back door handle moved. Not a rattle from wind. A deliberate turn, like a hand had wrapped around it and tested it. Lena froze. Her head snapped toward the door. The handle stopped moving. I stared at it, breath shallow. The back door led to the alley. From the alley you could see Baxter's awning. From the awning rule 3, do not stand inside the shadow of the awning when it rings. The awning is part of it. The handle turned again, slowly, as if whoever was on the other side wanted me to notice the exact moment the latch would release. "Don't," Lena whispered, not looking at me. "Don't you dare." I didn't move. The handle stopped. Then from outside, faint through brick and metal, I heard it. 2 short rings pause. 1 long ring that vibrated up through the alley and into my teeth. The payphone was ringing, and it felt like it was ringing for me specifically now that it knew I was awake and close. My phone still in my pocket buzzed once. I didn't pull it out. I didn't want to see the screen. I didn't want any part of me to become a speaker for whatever was happening outside. The long ring ended, and for a moment I thought that was it. Then I heard something I hadn't heard the other nights. A second ring after the long one. Short, sharp, wrong. Rule 13. If you ever hear a second ring after the long one, run. Do not drive. My legs went cold. Lena's eyes widened. She mouthed the word no like it was a prayer. The back door handle stopped moving, and then, from somewhere very close on the other side of the door, a voice spoke. Not loud, not muffled, as clear as if the speaker's mouth was pressed to the thin crack of weather stripping. "Let me out. Rule 12 if it says, 'Let me out.' Do not answer. Do not hang up. Put the receiver down gently and step away." But the receiver wasn't in my hand. It wasn't even in the building. The voice repeated, softer, like it was trying to sound harmless. "Let me out." Lena backed away from the door without taking her eyes off it. She pointed toward the front of the bakery, toward the big plate glass windows and the street beyond. "Go," I shook my head. "We can't leave," I whispered. It said don't go home if Lena's face tightened. "That part's for people who already answered," she hissed. "We haven't yet." The word landed like a threat. The voice outside chuckled. Then the back door handle turned all the way down. The latch clicked. I didn't think. I moved. I crossed the kitchen in 3 strides and slammed my weight against the door from the inside. Hands scrambling for the deadbolt. The handle on the other side tried to lift. Hard. Like the person out there was strong, or angry, or both. I threw the deadbolt. Metal slid into place. The handle jerked again, then stopped. Silence spread like oil. Lena's breathing was loud in the quiet, and I realized mine was too. A soft tapping started on the metal door. Not fists, knuckles. Polite, patient. Tap, tap. Open up, the voice said, sounding like my manager when he needed someone to come in on their day off. Like I was being unreasonable, I leaned my forehead against the cold steel of the door, forcing myself not to respond. Rule 1. If you have to talk to yourself. Not yours, I mouthed without sound just to feel my tongue shape the words. The tapping stopped. Then, from the alley, the payphone rang again faint. But clearly the same cadence. 2 short pause, 1 long. The long ring carried a whisper in it, like before. This time the whisper wasn't my name. It was a question. Which door? My stomach lurched. Lena heard it too. Her face went pale. The question repeated, threaded through the ring like a hook. Which door do you want open? My mind flashed to Lena's story, her sister being asked something simple that ruined her life. The payphone wasn't just ringing, it was asking. And it was asking me. The ring stopped abruptly. The alley went quiet. Then the bakery's front door handle moved. The front door wasn't deadbolted. We didn't lock it until morning, when the first customers came and we wanted to control the flow. The handle turned slowly. I looked toward it, frozen. Lena shook her head hard, eyes wide. Don't choose, she whispered. If you choose, it's in. The front door latch clicked. The door began to open. Just a crack. And through that crack, instead of the streetlight glow I expected, there was darkness. The same thick, light-eating darkness I'd seen inside the church doorway, on Main Street the other night. It didn't belong there. Outside should have been lit by the neon diner sign across the street, by the gas station canopy, by porch lights. But the crack in the front door showed only a black void, as if the bakery now opened into a different place. The tapping on the back door started again, louder. Tap, tap, as if something inside the darkness was impatient. The question returned, not from the payphone now, but from both doors at once. 2 voices overlapping slightly, like stereo. Which door? Lena grabbed my wrist again, nails biting. Look at me, she said fiercely. Don't look at it. Don't decide. If you decide, it counts. My throat tightened. My eyes burned. My brain screamed for an answer, the way it screams for relief when you're underwater. The front door opened wider on its own. The darkness spilled in as a cold draft, smelling like whetstone and old pennies. My phone buzzed again in my pocket, and this time I couldn't resist pulling it out. The screen was on. No service bars. No notifications. Just a single incoming call interface, like someone was calling me directly. No number, no contact name, just one word where the caller ID should have been, payphone. The call timer wasn't counting up, it was counting down. 012, 011, 010. Lena saw it and made a sound like she'd been punched. Don't answer, she rasped, but I hadn't pressed anything, I didn't have to. At 007, the call connected on its own. No ringtone, no vibration, it just opened. And from my phone speaker, softly, intimately, a voice said my name again. Then it asked, in a tone like it was doing me a favor. Which one do you miss the most? My mouth went dry. My mind immediately supplied an image I hadn't thought about in years. My older brother, Aaron, standing in our driveway with his duffel bag, promising he'd be back by Christmas. He never came back. Not dead, not alive. Just gone. A missing person flyer that faded in shop windows until nobody remembered to replace it. I felt tears sting my eyes. The voice on the phone laughed gently, like it could taste the memory. Say it whispered. Say his name, Lena, slapped the phone out of my hand. It hit the tile and skittered under a rack. The voice didn't stop. It came from everywhere now, my pocket. The vents, the oven fan. Aaron, it sighed lovingly. My heart seized. Lena backed away from me like I was contagious. You brought it here, she whispered. Not accusation, horror. You let it use your speaker. The front door swung open another inch. The darkness inside it rippled like water disturbed by footsteps. And from within that black, something stepped forward. I didn't see a shape. I saw absence shaped like a person. A silhouette that swallowed reflections. It paused at the threshold, as if waiting for permission. waiting for me to acknowledge it. Waiting for a choice. Behind me, the back door handle began to turn again, and the deadbolt shuddered like it was being tested by something that had time on its side. Lena grabbed a metal tray and raised it like a shield. Her voice trembled but stayed strong. "Close your eyes," she whispered to me, "and whatever it says, don't answer. Don't say any names, not yours, not theirs, not anyone." I shut my eyes. In the dark behind my eyelids, I heard the payphone ring. Too short, pause one long, and then, closer than it ever been, right beside my ear, the whisper came again. "Trade time." When I closed my eyes, the bakery stopped feeling like a room. It felt like standing in the middle of a choice, not metaphorically, physically, like the air had weight on one side and emptiness on the other, and my body could tell which way the world wanted to tip. Lena's voice came from somewhere far away. "Don't open them," she said. "Count anything." So I counted my breaths, in through my nose, out through my mouth. The cold draft from the open front door touched my cheek, like a finger. The whisper beside my ear didn't sound like one voice anymore. It sounded like several people saying the same words in unison. Their timing slightly off. "Trade time," I kept counting. And then, abruptly, everything went quiet. No payphone ring bleeding through the alley. No tapping on the back door. No oven hum. The silence was so total it made my ears ache. I opened my eyes. The front door was shut. Not gently. Not as if someone had closed it. Shut like it had never opened. The street outside looked normal again, streetlight glow. The diner sign. The empty road. The darkness that had been spilling in was gone like a trick. Lena stood 10 feet away holding a sheet pan with both hands. Her knuckles were white. Her eyes were locked on me like she was waiting for me to confess to something. "Did you answer?" she asked. I swallowed. My throat felt scraped raw. "No," I said. I didn't say anything. Lena didn't relax. "That's not what I asked," she said, voice tight. "Did you answer in your head?" The question made my stomach turn because I understood what she meant. Sometimes you can answer without speaking. Sometimes a thought is a door. I thought of Aaron. I thought of the voice saying his name like it owned it. I remembered him, I admitted. Lena exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for years. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay, that's not the same as speaking it out loud. Not always." Not always. That didn't help. The ovens beeped again, as if the world was catching up on the seconds we'd lost. The fluorescent lights buzzed. The bakery smell returned: yeast, sugar, warmth, normal. But I could still smell that overheated plastic scent under it, like something had rubbed itself into the air. Lena set the sheet pan down with trembling hands. "It's getting closer," she said. "If it followed you here, it's getting closer. What is it?" I asked, and this time the question came out like a plea. Lena hesitated, then wiped her hands on her apron again, buying time. "It's not a ghost," she said finally. "It's not a demon like church people mean. It's like a hole. A hole. A hole in the night," she said. "A place where a minute went missing, and it calls through it." My skin prickled. "Why 247? I asked. Lena stared past me at the back door, like she expected to see fingers sliding under it. "You know the old siren tower up on Alder Ridge," she said. "Everybody in town knew it. An old civil defense siren from the Cold War, rusting on a concrete platform where teens went to drink beer and carve their names." "Yeah," I said. 15 years ago, the tower caught fire." Lena continued. "Not a wildfire, not lightning. A clean burn, like someone lit it with gasoline. The firefighters said the flames were blue for a few seconds." My mouth went dry. "My dad used to talk about that," I murmured. "Said the siren went off by itself." "It did," Lena said. At 2:47 a.m., not just that night, the week before, the week after, like the tower was trying to warn people. Like it knew what time the world was going to. I could feel my heart crawling up my throat. "What slipped?" I asked. Lena's eyes shone with something like anger. "A school bus," she said. "A little one. The kind that picks up kids out on the back roads. It was coming down Alder Ridge in the dark because the driver was doing a substitute route for extra cash." Her voice cracked slightly. "The bus never reached the bottom," I stared at her. That's impossible. Tell that to the parents, Lena snapped, then softened immediately. She swallowed hard. They found tire tracks that just ended like the road ran out, like the bus drove into air. I imagined that dark road, headlights sweeping trees, then nothing, and bile rose in my throat. They said it was an accident, Lena continued, because that's what towns do. We call it an accident so we can keep living, but people who were awake heard the siren. And some of them drove up there, and they swear they saw a light on the road, a bright rectangle, like an open door. She paused, eyes hard, and they heard ringing. The payphone, my hands clenched. So the payphone is connected to that? I asked. Lena nodded slowly. It showed up after, she said. The phone company denies it was ever installed. There's no record. But one day it was just bolted there, and it rings at the exact minute the siren went off, I said. At the exact minute the bus vanished, Lena corrected. My stomach dropped. And when you answer, I whispered, it asks you questions. Lena looked away. Not always questions, she said. Sometimes it just listens. Sometimes it breathes. Sometimes it offers you something you shouldn't want. And the trade, I asked. Trade time, Lena's face tightened. That's the part people don't write down, she said. Because if you write it down, it becomes an option. And once it's an option, you start bargaining in your head. I swallowed. But she had already said it. The word trade was in the rules, in the whisper. It wants time, I said. Lena didn't deny it. It wants a minute, she said softly. A piece of your life you'll never get back, but it doesn't just take it. It makes you give it. I thought about the countdown timer on my phone call, ticking down like it was waiting for consent. How do you give it? I asked. Lena's hands trembled. You stay, she said. After it rings, you stay until 2:48 without hanging up, without answering, without running. You stay and let the minute pass through you. My skin went cold. That's insane, I whispered. That's just standing there. Lena's laugh was bitter. No, she said. It's letting it use you as a door. And if you do it, it will give you back a minute from somewhere else. My chest tightened. A minute from when? Lena looked at me, and her eyes were wet now. From the night the bus vanished, she said. From the gap, from the missing time. I stared at her. You're saying I could. What? I could bring someone back in 1 minute. Lena's expression hardened. You could pull someone out, she corrected, and you'd be putting someone else in. The words hit me like ice water. There's no free, she whispered. There's only traded. I couldn't stop thinking about Aaron. Not the abstract missing person version. The real one, my brother stealing fries off my plate. My brother teaching me to throw a curveball. My brother leaving with his duffel bag and that stupid promise. I swallowed hard. What happens if nobody answers? I asked. Lena's gaze flicked to the clock. It read 2:52 a.m. now. Past the minute. Past the danger for tonight, supposedly. It keeps ringing, she said, until it finds someone who will. I nodded slowly, mind racing. Then a new thought slid in, sharp and ugly. It didn't ring at Baxter's tonight, I said. Not just there, it called my phone. It came to Marino's. Lena's face drained. That's what happens when you bring a device, she whispered. It's not limited anymore. It learned a new way to speak. A chill rolled through me. So what do? I asked. Lena hesitated like she didn't want to hand me a knife but knew I was bleeding. You stop it from choosing you, she said. You make yourself useless to it. How? Lena looked at my phone, then at the back door. You go to Baxter's tomorrow, she said. In daylight. You leave a new rule on that paper. A new rule, I repeated. Lena nodded once. Don't answer, she said. Don't listen. Don't bargain. Don't bring devices, she swallowed. And if it says your brother's name, you walk away. My throat tightened. And if it keeps following me, I asked. Lena's eyes went distant, like she was remembering something she hated. Then you do what my sister couldn't, she said. You let the ring happen, and you don't feed it. I wanted to believe that was possible, but as I stood there in the warm bakery, watching flour dust drift in the air like tiny ghosts, I realized the truth. It didn't need me to speak anymore. It had already learned my voice. It had already said Aaron's name without my permission. And somewhere out in the town, under Baxter's awning, a dead payphone waited for 247 to come again, not to ring. To collect. The next day I went to Baxter's at noon like Lena told me to. I left my phone at home. I left my smartwatch on the dresser. I even left my car keys in a bowl by the door and walked the whole way, like distance and sweat could scrub the night off me. The sun was out, but it wasn't warm. Late fall light that makes everything look honest and tired. Leaves skittered along the curb. A flag snapped lazily in the breeze outside the post office. Baxter's looked like it always did. Dead storefront, papered windows, the awning casting a stubborn strip of shade on the sidewalk. The payphone sat under it, dull and silent. In daylight, it almost looked pathetic. I stepped under the awning anyway, and the air changed immediately cooler, heavier. The overheated plastic smell was stronger here, as if the sun couldn't reach whatever lived in that shadow. I forced myself to focus on the paper taped inside the housing. The rule sheet was still there, edges curled, multiple hands layered in ink. Someone had added new notes at the bottom since I read it yesterday. Fresh pen. Shaky strokes. Do not answer tonight. It's calling through phones now. My stomach tightened. So Lena wasn't the only one who noticed. I pulled a folded index card out of my pocket and a marker ID borrowed from the bakery. My hand trembled as I wrote, because writing a rule felt like making a deal, like carving a line into the thing's skin. New rule. If it says a name you love, do not repeat it. Not even in your head. Walk away and count your teeth. The words looked ridiculous in daylight. Count your teeth. But the rule sheet had already taught me ridiculous could be life-saving. I taped the card to the inside of the payphone housing, below the others. The moment the tape stuck, the receiver shifted slightly in its cradle, as if the phone had flexed a muscle. My breath caught. I backed away from the awning quickly, heart thudding, and stepped into the sun. A normal person would have gone home then, patched the hole as best they could and tried to live. But the phone had followed me into Marino's last night. It had tried to force a choice with 2 doors and a countdown timer. If it could reach into my pocket and speak from my speaker, then a new rule on a paper wasn't enough. I needed answers. Not supernatural answers. Not big cosmic explanations. Just enough history to understand where the seam was and why 247 mattered. So I did something I hadn't done since high school. I went to the library. Our library is one of those old buildings towns brag about, but never fund properly. 3 rooms, dusty carpet, a mural of mountains that doesn't look like our mountains. The local history section sits in the back, under a flickering light, full of bound newspapers and pamphlets. Nobody checks out unless they're writing a term paper or investigating a curse. The librarian on duty was Mr. Caffrey, a thin man with silver hair and a voice like a whisper. He knew everyone's business and pretended he didn't. He looked up when I approached the desk. "You're up early," he said. "Night shift," I replied. His eyes narrowed slightly, like he already knew that. "I need to look up something about Alder Ridge," I said. "The siren fire." Mr. Caffrey didn't move for a second. Then he pushed his glasses up and nodded toward the back. "Local archives are open," he said. "Be gentle with the bindings." I took that as permission and walked to the history shelves. The bound newspapers were arranged by year. I found the one I needed 15 years ago, late October, and set it on a table. The leather cover creaked like it didn't like being disturbed. I flipped pages carefully until I found the date. There it was, front page. Siren Tower fire mystifies county, no injuries reported. I scanned the article. Heart thudding. It talked about the siren going off at 2:47 a.m., waking half the town. Firefighters arriving to find the base of the tower burning with unusual intensity. The flames described as strangely colored by witnesses. An electrical malfunction blamed, no charges, case closed. But on the next page small, almost hidden, was a separate story. School bus missing after late route search called off at daybreak. My breath caught. I read it twice, then a third time slower. The bus had been carrying no kids. That was the first lie my mind had assumed. It was a late run because the driver was asked to do a special pickup 2 students who had missed the afternoon route because of a family emergency. 2 names were listed, but the ink was faded, and the print blurred. I leaned closer until my eyes ached. One of the names was Lena's sister. The other, my stomach turned to ice, Aaron. I sat back hard enough the chair scraped. My brother hadn't just gone missing. He had been on that bus. He had been part of the town's missing minute. My hands shook as I read the rest. The driver was never found. The bus was never found. Tire tracks ended near Alder Ridge as if the road had been cut out. Search dogs refused to cross a certain point. The article mentioned a strange ringing sound, reported by a deputy and dismissed as stress. My mouth went dry. I flipped the page, frantic now, looking for follow-ups. More articles over the next week, parents pleading, rumors spreading. A reward fund, then silence. The kind of silence that grows when a town decides to survive by forgetting. At the bottom of one later, article was a detail that made my skin crawl. Phone company denies installing new payphone outside Baxter's. Residents report nightly ringing. So it really had started right after the bus vanished. I sat there staring at the words until the ink swam. Then I noticed something tucked into the binding pocket at the back of the newspaper volume. Old clippings sometimes fell into them, slipped there by librarians over the years. A loose piece of paper slid out when I lifted the cover. Not a newspaper clipping, a handwritten letter. The paper was brittle, folded into thirds, sealed with tape. On the outside, in careful cursive, it read, "To whoever won't let it go." My throat tightened. I opened it gently. Inside was a single page of handwriting. Neat but urgent, like someone forcing calm. It begins with the payphone, it said, but it isn't the payphone. The siren tower was only the first alarm. The ring is a timer, a latch. When it calls, it's checking if the seam is still closed. You can open it by answering. You can open it by listening. You can open it by saying the wrong name, and you can close it again once. But closing it cost what it took. My heart hammered. Below that, another paragraph. If you want someone back, you must stand under the awning at 2:47, and let it ring until 2:48 without answering. Do not bring anything that records. Do not bring anyone you love. If it offers you a door, you refuse. If it offers you a trade, you refuse. And at 2:48, when the ring stops, you will hear one last thing. A voice behind you asking to be let out. Do not turn around. Do not answer. Walk away. The letter ended with a signature that made my throat close. M. Hearn, Deputy Sheriff. I recognized the name. Everyone in town did. Deputy Hearn had been the one who led the search for the missing bus. Head quit a year later, and moved away after what people called a breakdown. Folks said he drank himself sick and talked to empty rooms. But this letter was clear. It wasn't drunk nonsense. It was instructions. And it ended with one last line, written so hard it dented the paper. If the phone ever says trade time, it means you're already part of the seam. I sat there in the quiet library with my hands shaking over the letter, feeling like the building was too small to hold what I'd just learned. Aaron had been on that bus. The payphone wasn't trying to tempt me with a random missing person. It was calling me because my brother was part of the missing minute, and some part of the town, some part of time itself, still had his name caught in its teeth. I stood up too fast, chair scraping again. Mr. Caffrey looked over from the front desk, eyebrows raised. "You find what you were looking for," he called softly. I couldn't answer honestly without saying names out loud, and now I understood how dangerous that was. So I did the only thing I could. I nodded once, tucked Deputy Hearn's letter into my jacket, and walked out into the cold sunlight. I didn't go home. I went to Marino's early and found Lena in the back, prepping dough. She took one look at my face and went still. "You know," she said. I swallowed. "Aaron was on the bus," I whispered. Lena's eyes closed like she'd been hit. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The bakery air felt thin. Then Lena opened her eyes and looked at me with something like resignation. "So that's why it picked you," she said. "It isn't offering you a stranger. It's offering you the missing minute." My chest tightened. "What do I do?" I asked. Lena stared at the wall clock, like it might start counting down again. "You do what nobody in this town has the stomach to do anymore," she said. "You stay," I whispered. Lena nodded once. You stay under Baxter's awning at 2:47, she said. And you don't answer. You don't bargain. You don't look back. Her voice dropped. And if Aaron comes back, you don't touch him until the sun comes up. You hear me? My stomach clenched. Why? Lena's mouth trembled. Because you don't know what else might come with him, she said. I thought of the darkness spilling through the bakery door, the silhouette shaped like absence, the whisper, trade time, and I realized the plan wasn't about bravery, it was about endurance. Standing in the one place everyone avoids, at the one time everyone pretends doesn't exist, and refusing to give the scene what it wanted, I looked at the clock. It read 12:19 p.m. Too many hours until 2:47 a.m. Too much time to imagine everything that could go wrong. But ID already been chosen. And if the letter was right, the seam only closed once. So that night, I left my phone at home, put on my warmest jacket, and walked to Baxter's a full hour early. I stood across the street in the dim glow of a street lamp, watching the awning's shadow deepen as the night grew colder. At 2:45, the whole town felt like it leaned away from me. At 2:46, the air under the awning looked darker than the rest of the sidewalk. And at 2:47, the payphone began to ring. Two short pause. One long. I stepped under the awning and did not touch the receiver. I did not close my eyes. I did not look behind me. I just stood there, letting the ring vibrate through the metal and into my bones, and waited to see what the missing minute wanted to buy with my life. The first short ring hit like a jolt to my spine. The payphone didn't sound loud out on the street. Cars weren't slamming brakes. Dogs weren't howling. The town wasn't reacting. But under the awning, in that strip of shadow, the ring had weight. It moved through the metal housing, through the bolts in the brick, through the pavement into the soles of my shoes. Two short rings. The long ring began, and with it came that thin, overheated plastic smell like a warning flare. I stared straight ahead at the papered Baxter's windows. I picked a point on the brown paper where a rip formed a little crescent, and decided that was the only thing I was allowed to see. Don't touch the receiver. Don't answer. Don't bargain. Don't look back. The long ring stopped. For half a second, the silence felt like the end of a test. Then the second ring came. Short. Wrong. Rule 13 screamed in my head. If you ever hear a second ring after the long one, run. Do not drive. My legs went cold, but I didn't move. Because I understood something now that I hadn't understood before. The rule sheet wasn't universal truth. It was survival advice written by people who had already panicked. They wrote, run, because running was the only way they could keep from answering. It was the only way they could keep their bodies from turning toward the sound. I didn't have that luxury. If I ran now, I would spend the rest of my life with the ring following me into other rooms, other nights, other speakers. It had already learned how, so I stayed. The payphone rang again, too short. Pause. One long, except the long ring didn't sound like a ring anymore. It sounded like something clearing its throat, and threaded through it came a voice, not quite inside the ring this time, but close enough that my skin prickled as if someone was speaking into my ear. Trade time. My heart hammered hard enough to make my vision pulse. I didn't respond. I didn't even mouth, not yours. I let the words hit the air and fall. The ring shifted again, and suddenly the voice changed. It became my mother's voice, soft, exhausted. The way she sounded when she thought I was asleep and she was trying not to cry. Please, it said, just tell me where he is. My throat tightened. The part of me that was still a son, still a little boy, wanted to answer reflexively, wanted to say I don't know. I'm trying, but I understood the trap. The moment I answered, even with grief, it would count as consent. It would become a door. I kept staring at the rip in the papered window. The long ring stopped. A new sound replaced it. Breathing. Not from the receiver, from behind me, in the strip of shadow under the awning, close enough that the hairs on my neck rose. Slow inhale, slow exhale. The breathing got closer. I didn't turn. I didn't flinch. I could feel something leaning in, like someone trying to read the side of my face. The payphone rang again, and this time, it didn't follow the pattern. It rang and rang and rang without stopping. One continuous vibration that made the metal housing tremble, like it was about to shake itself free. Through that continuous ring, a voice spoke as clearly as if someone had picked up on the other end. "You can have 1 minute back," it said. My hands clenched inside my pockets until my nails dug into my palms. 1 minute of him, it continued, gentle now, persuasive. 1 minute to say goodbye right. 1 minute to make it right. The ring softened, becoming almost musical, like a lullaby played through a broken speaker. "I can open it," the voice whispered. "All you have to do is choose." Choose. Which door? Which one do you miss the most? My chest tightened as a memory rose uninvited. Aaron in the driveway with the duffel bag, giving me a noogie and telling me to behave while he was gone. Me rolling my eyes, thinking he'd be back by Christmas. A truck drove past on Main Street, headlights sweeping over Baxter's papered windows. For a split second, the awning shadow flickered, and I felt the air under it ripple like water disturbed by a hand. The breathing behind me stopped, then something touched my shoulder, not a hand. A pressure, like a palm pressed gently through thick cloth. My entire body wanted to spin around. Every nerve screamed to identify the touch. I did not. I stared forward and counted my teeth with my tongue, like the rule said. 1, 2, 3. As I counted, I realized my tongue kept snagging on something sharp. A chipped tooth I didn't have yesterday. A new edge. A new cost. The voice chuckled softly, as if it enjoyed the discovery. "Time," it said. "Everyone has some to spare." The pressure on my shoulder lifted. Then I heard it faint at first, then clearer a sound, coming from somewhere beyond the payphone, beyond Baxter's building. A distant siren. Not a modern siren. Not an ambulance. The old civil defense siren up on Alder Ridge. It was singing that same long, awful note the articles described. The note nobody my age should have ever heard except in recordings. My stomach turned. The payphone stopped ringing. The siren kept going. And then right at my ear, so close I felt the air move. Someone whispered, "Don't let it see you turn." The whisper wasn't the payphone's voice. It wasn't my mother's. It was a boy's voice, teenage, ragged. "Aaron," my knees almost buckled. The payphone clicked once, like a line connecting. Then, from the receiver, in a voice that tried too hard to sound kind, "You can come out," it said. "Or you can." My throat tightened so hard it hurt. The siren on Alder Ridge wailed, and behind me the breathing returned, faster now, hungry. The streetlight above the awning flickered. Not off, not on, dimmer. Brighter, dimmer. Like time itself was stuttering. I realized then what Deputy Hearn's letter meant. At 2:48, when the ring stops, you will hear one last thing. A voice behind you asking to be let out. Do not turn around. Do not answer. Walk away. The problem was, the voice I heard behind me wasn't asking. Soft at first, then building, like someone trying not to sob but losing the fight. A child's cry. A scared, trapped sound. And threaded through it, barely audible, another voice older, rougher muttering like a prayer. Number, not again. Deputy Hearn. My heart pounded. The payphone didn't ring now. It waited. The siren tone wavered and then cut off abruptly, leaving a silence so sharp. It felt like stepping off a curb you didn't see. I glanced without turning my head at the reflection in Baxter's dark window. In the glass I could see behind me. A shape stood in the awning's shadow. Tall, thin, wrong at the joints. Not fully there, like the glass didn't want to hold its reflection. And beside that shape, lower to the ground, was another silhouette smaller, shaking, like someone on their knees. My stomach clenched. My eyes burned with tears I refused to let fall. The small silhouette lifted its head slightly, and in the warped reflection I saw a face. Not clearly, but enough to recognize the outline of my brother's jaw, the slope of his nose. Aaron. His mouth moved. No sound came from his lips, but the payphone spoke for him. Say my name, it said in my brother's voice. Just once, my entire body tensed. The urge was unbearable, primitive, like hunger, like drowning, like pain demanding relief. Say his name. Bring him out. Lena's warning slammed through me. If Aaron comes back, don't touch him until the sun comes up. You don't know what else might come with him. Deputy Hearn's letter. You can close it again once. But closing it costs what it took. I understood then what the seam wanted. Not my voice. Not my grief. Not even my obedience. It wanted my decision. If I said Aaron's name, I'd be choosing to open the seam wider, choosing to let the missing minutes spill into the town, and take whatever it needed to balance the trade. If I stayed silent and walked away, I might be closing it, and leaving Aaron where had been for 15 years. The payphone began to ring again quietly, insistently like a heartbeat restarting. Not the old pattern, just a single ring repeating over and over. Ring, pause, ring. Pause, the streetlight dimmed. My breath came out in white puffs. And then, from behind me, Aaron's whisper came again. Not through the phone this time, through the shadow itself. Don't, he rasped. Don't say it. My vision blurred. The payphone's voice turned sharp, irritated. He doesn't know what he wants, it snapped. The tall shape behind me shifted, and the awning shadow deepened, like ink spreading in water. The smaller silhouette Aaron jerked, as if tugged by an invisible line. His hands scrabbled at the pavement. The payphone hissed in my ear. Trade time. I made my choice. I didn't speak. I didn't answer. I didn't say Aaron's name. Not even in my head. I stepped forward out of the awning's shadow into the streetlight. The moment my shoes crossed that invisible line, the air snapped back to normal temperature, like someone had shut a freezer door. The payphone went dead silent. The breathing behind me stopped. The streetlight steadied. I kept walking. I did not turn around. I did not look at Baxter's windows. I walked until I hit the corner, then another, and only when I reached the bright, familiar glow of Marino's front window did I let myself breathe like a human again. Inside the bakery, the ovens hummed. The world smelled like bread. Lena was there, sitting on a stool with her arms wrapped around herself, eyes fixed on the wall clock. When she saw me, she stood so fast the stool clattered. Well, she whispered. I swallowed hard. It stopped, I said. Lena's shoulders sagged in relief that looked like grief in disguise. Then you closed it, she said. I shook my head, because the word closed felt too clean. I walked away, I corrected. Lena nodded slowly, eyes shining. That's the same thing in this town, she murmured. Walking away is how we survive. I didn't sleep that day either, because that night, at 2:47, I woke up anyway without an alarm. Without a sound eye snapping open like someone had tugged a string tied to my spine. The room was silent. No ringing, no siren. But on my bedside table, where my phone was face down and powered off, the screen lit up by itself. One notification, no sender. A single line of text, next new moon. I stared at it until the screen went dark again. And in the quiet after, I realized the worst part wasn't that the payphone could call through speakers. The worst part was that it had accepted my refusal, like a cashier taking a bill. Not angry, not defeated, just patient, because now it knew I could resist. Which meant next time, it would bring a better offer. If you want more stories like this, small towns with big secrets and rules that actually matter, make sure you like the video and subscribe. And tell me in the comments if you saw your missing brother in that reflection under the awning. Would you have said his name to bring him back, even knowing it might cost someone else their time?